Welcome to Kempner Sports. This is a real special treat for me because we're going to be talking crazy Canucks right now. There's so much going on, but first I want to introduce you to my good friend, Jeff, Mr. Bjorgen. Now, welcome to the podcast, Jeff. I'm thrilled to chat with you about what's been going on.
I'm looking forward to it. Crazy Canuck talk, I tell you.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, so you and I have known each other since college, and we have talked Canucks a million times is probably an understatement. We often go back and forth on texting or calls. We've been in the hockey pool for over a decade, which is insane, and have battled there. We often are trying to pull off trades together. And we've also been to Penticton together to watch the Canucks prospects, the Young Stars tournament, which we've thoroughly enjoyed. In fact, were you and I at the very first Connor McDavid game there? Were you at that?
Absolutely, because they let him play on the Friday night, and then the other nights he didn't play. Nobody knew that was going to happen, but we got to see Connor McDavid live before he headed off to Edmonton, and of course became who Connor McDavid is. But yeah, we got to be a part of that Friday night game where a bunch of our friends were all up on the Saturday night or Sunday night and missed them completely. So a little bit of bragging rights there.
Yeah, my favorite part of that game was when Jake Virtanen knocked him into next week. Okay. And I don't know if you remember this,
yes,
but
I
we're in the crowd. Okay. And I brought my boys with me, and there was some guy behind us who said, now I'm wrecking the story. Something about McDavid, you suck, or something like that, which he's been turned out to be the greatest hockey player on the planet. But
yeah, no kidding.
There's the Canucks Oiler rivalry right there, and So, anyways, we've done a lot of talking, and I just thought it'd be really special if we could have a conversation with what is going on here. And I always love your take on Vancouver and what kind of the thought process is. So just to start, okay, I made a very bold prediction last year before the season started, after Benning had made all the moves, that the Canucks were going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people still unsure that Vancouver had the talent to do that. But
I didn't think they did. Yeah.
Right. So there you go. Right. So a lot of experts like yourself who didn't believe that. Okay. And here we go. So we're all of a sudden going to be when that JT Miller trade happened, I was not happy with it. And I don't know how you felt about it, actually, because that was a long time ago. But I didn't want to give up a first round pick for him.
Yeah.
Even though I thought he was a good player, I didn't think he was great. I didn't think he was going to turn into JT Miller of what he's actually pulled off. I don't know. What did you think about that JT Miller trade if we just go back real quick?
Well, actually, when I think of Miller, it was the New York years where he was this up-and-coming guy and everybody expected him to be really good. And they ended up doing 40, 50 points a year. And then ending up in Tampa Bay, it looked good for him when he first got traded there, had a good points per game. And then I think the following year, it just ended up down on the depth chart. And so good player. Did I think he was worth a number one draft pick? I'm thinking, come on, Canucks, don't lose these picks. For him to do what he did, I don't think anybody could have ever imagined that he'd be they talk about heart and soul players, but he's the guy. He does everything out there. Bo Horvat obviously has that kind of flavor to him as well, but Miller is tough. He's strong. He's defensive. He scores when he needs to score, and it ends up being a brilliant pick. Who knew, right?
Yeah, and so my take on that was, I think Benning's strength is his drafting and his scouting. So when we traded that away, I thought, okay, this is nuts, right? But I'm so glad I'm wrong, okay? And he has turned out to be everything Vancouver is hoping for. I always think, what are these draft picks going to turn out to be? And if you could say that's going to be JT Miller the way he played, you're like, that's an amazing draft pick.
Absolutely.
So I'm okay now with that. Now, fast forward, we make the playoffs, and what an exciting run. I loved it. Oh, man.
Great hockey.
Great hockey. Our team came together. I wasn't a huge fan of Quentin Hughes because I was worried about his size, but I knew he had skill. And I'll never forget watching Jim Benning at the draft when he drafted Quentin Hughes. I've never seen him so happy in my life. Like, did you see that? Like the joy.
Oh yeah,
like,
he was dancing. He knew what he had.
Oh yeah, he was giddy. Like he knew this is the kid, right? So we've had some good moments. Okay. He has turned out to be unbelievable. In fact, I'm not surprised that he didn't win Rookie of the Year because Cale Makar is amazing. But to be in that conversation, here's something about Hughes that I didn't know until last week. Did you know that he was 5th in scoring as a rookie defenseman?
Fifth in scoring, like in the NHL?
As a defenseman.
Oh, as a defenseman, as if you could take every single NHL player,
every
he ended up
NHL
5th.
defenseman, he was 5th.
Oh, out of all defensemen?
Yes.
No, I did not know that.
Okay.
That's incredible.
I did not know that either. And then he was also 5th in playoff scoring as a defenseman.
And I saw that. I just thought, this is insane. Oh yeah, he put the team on his back and just went for it. Like,
and that's one of the reasons why we made the playoffs. We didn't know that Quentin Hughes is going to be that good. Like if you would have said Jack Hughes, yeah. Because I think that was the last time I went to that. I think did I see Jack or Quentin at the, anyway, it doesn't matter. This is getting too long on that story. But so it was unbelievable. Markstrom was incredible. And then Demko was unbelievable. Like one of the things in Canuck Sports Talk Radio was, I was thinking about, they were saying how they've never seen a guy that young dominate 3 games like that. Like even Luongo, even like there's this, like that's against Vegas, bigger, stronger, faster, more experienced playoffs. I was so excited. And I've always been like, you know, you and I are both the same. We love Schneider and Luongo. We love Demko and Markstrom. And Markstrom's been our MVP. So let's just quickly talk here. Like when walking into free agency after this incredible run, who were you kind of saying, like, what were you thinking? We have to sign Markstrom, or should we be protecting Demko? Like, what were you thinking that Canuck should have done?
No, I thought that temptation is to try to keep him around, but that seems to be some of the difficulties we have. Like you said, Benning, his strength is, doing drafting, finding some of these young players. I don't know if his greatest strength is signing people to contracts, and the roster is still a little bit of a mess, and I'm concerned about getting these young core all signed for a long term. I'm thinking like the Chicago model where they signed up their core for a long period of time. It feels like we signed up, it's typical Canuck lore. We signed up all these bottom 6 players to try to make things work, and now these contracts are a bit of a slog for us. And so my fear, especially going into an expansion draft year, of them putting big money and big years into a Markstrom when you've got a guy obviously ready to be crowned king of the net, Demko coming up, you're going to lose one of them. Most likely you lose Demko if you're selling the farm to Markstrom. So as much as I love Markstrom and seems like a great guy, even like his interviews and all that stuff like that just seemed to bleed a little bit of Canuck blue. The smart move was not to sign him. So I was hoping that they wouldn't sign him in order to keep Demko. That being said, I didn't know they'd pick up Holtby, and I thought that was a brilliant move. I thought what you talk about trading, and I just put Benning underneath the bus saying he's not good at this kind of stuff. But signing Holtby, I thought that was a great contract. It was a good pricing. It's 2 years. There's not a no trade contract element to it, so you're able to move him if you desperately need to. And it just seemed like that's the kind of contracts Canucks need to be signing. So I'm not worried at all that they didn't get Markstrom. I kind of thought that should be the move in order to free up more money. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what to say about some of these other moves or non-moves that they made, but that was my Markstrom.
Well, let's stay on Holtby. Okay, first of all, it seemed to be now going into the offseason, there was a decision that needed to be made, Markstrom or Demko. And it seemed like the decision was made that we were choosing Markstrom because we did try to sign him, right? He just didn't offer the same amount of money that he knew he could get somewhere else. So he decided to walk, right? So I'm a little concerned, like, I think it's really interesting now that everything's kind of played out and it's still stuff going on, how our plan A has turned into plan C and D. For example, the Markstrom deal. They went after Markstrom first. I don't know what they offered. I wish I could be a fly on the wall in the GM's office to figure out like what they offered. Because did they offer him 5 for 5 years? Or what did they offer him? 4.5? Did they offer him, like, I don't know, right? So when I never thought we were going to lose Markstrom. I thought for sure, like, we might lose Toffoli or Tanev or something like that, but we weren't going to lose Markstrom. When the day before the free agency happened, I'm like, we're losing Markstrom. Oh my goodness, like, what is going to happen? So then my brain starts working and saying, okay, if we lose Markstrom, that means we're going to sign Toffoli and we're probably going to keep someone like Tanev or pick up someone else in the free agency. Well, Markstrom goes. Well, actually, the cool thing is Holtby goes to Vancouver first.
Yeah.
And I think Markstrom kind of was holding out to see if Vancouver would give them a better offer. This is my theory, okay?
Yeah.
But here's the thing about the Holtby deal that I love, and I sent it to you, like, I mean, our texting feed is massive, so I can't find it right now. But what Holtby's making this year is like 2.7, and then next year makes 5.9. Now, that was a brilliant move. The reason why is the expansion draft. Because, yeah, you can have Holtby if we decide to hold on to Demko as the guy that we're going to cover, but you got to take Holtby for one season. He might not sign back with you, and he's going to cost you $5.9 million. There's no way, in my opinion, they're going to go after a Holtby, but they would have went after a Markstrom for $6 million at 6 years, right? Mm. So this is where, like, Benning, okay, people criticize. Listen, I'm in Benning, I trust, okay, when it comes to hockey. And I love this guy. I think he's incredible on so many. Yes, he doesn't do everything perfectly, but, like, how do you do everything perfectly as GM? No GM works perfectly. So my question is, I mean, this is a long rant, sorry.
That's good.
Markstrom now gone. What's your feeling of now Holtby and Demko as our tandem? And what do you think the split's going to be for the season? I know we can't say, like, games wise because we're going to be a shortened season, but what do you think percentage wise it's going to be?
That's a great question. I just want to backtrack a little bit. Like you talked about the plan, okay, Canucks, what's plan A? And now it looks like we're on plan C. I think my frustration, and I know I've got some friends that are really hard on Benning right now. And I like Benning too, especially with the prospects that he finds. He's pretty good at finding those diamond in the roughs. But the frustration for me is that he hasn't communicated the plan. So the whole idea of going, yeah, we're going to try to keep all three of these guys. We've got Markstrom and Tanev and Toffoli. I'm not convinced that they actually wanted to sign any of those guys, especially when you see what they went through. So even what they offered Markstrom, I think they knew that we're going to offer this amount. I'm putting $5 million for whatever years. And they know that he's probably not going to go for it, but this is what we can afford. So a team has to go for the goalie before they wait for the goalie to sign somewhere else. They had to sign Holtby first before Markstrom comes along. It's the same thing for Trangelo. Shocked that St. Louis signed Krug. Well, why on earth wouldn't they sign, Krug, however his name is? What is it? Now I've got you confused.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
It's Krug.
He's Krug, yeah. He gets signed. Well, why would you? You're waiting for the guy to pick, who his dance partner is. You better find a partner fast, right?
Yeah.
So that's what Canucks are doing.
That's what our wives did with us, right? They're like, well, I'm low for that guy, but
we're plan C. We're glad they settled for us, Trevor. But in the end of the day, it's like we have to scramble. That's what happened with us. We had to scramble and
we
get our
did
wives
marry up. That's a fact. I still can't believe I married my wife, and I can't believe that you were married yours. This is thank you, God. Anyways,
well, the question with Holtby, I do think that Demko will take most of the starts. I don't know what that will be if they're playing 45 games or 50 games. It's probably going to be like a lockout season, but I would guess that It's going to be a tandem, absolutely a tandem, similar to what the Islanders have done in recent years. And I really do think you have a 1 and a 1A. I think Holtby's numbers will improve in Vancouver, mostly because I think the West is a bit more defensive minded than the East. I think he might not be playing in front of as strong a D as he could, but I don't think he was playing in front of a strong D in Washington. So I don't think Holtby's not one of those one and done kind of goalies. He's been good for a long time. And it was only 3 years ago that he was a Vezina trophy winner. So the guy's
he
good.
won a cup.
And he won a cup. That tells you something right there.
When's the last time you can say that about a Vancouver goalie? Never.
Yeah. And never ever. Yes, this is true. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm thinking if they protect Demko, they're probably going to do like a 60-40 split with Demko and Holtby. And I don't think Holtby's going to be overly excited about that personally, but whatever. It is what it is.
But you know what? The expansion is not going to pick Holtby. Like if they would have kept Markstrom and Demko, they're going to pick one or the other, guaranteed. When you think of all the other goalies available, Seattle's going to pick one of those people. But for some reason now, Holtby, that he's not in that same glamour spot that Markstrom's in, and how well he kind of lifted the team up.
Yeah.
I think they're not. Demko will be under contract. Holtby will be available, but there's going to be other goalies available that they won't pick Holtby. I'm pretty confident on that. So they've got 2 goalies that they're going to keep through expansion.
I was really sad to see Markstrom go personally, just because I think, I literally think he's been our MVP for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But when we signed Holtby, I was like, you know what? I can see the plan, right? Yes, we wanted him, couldn't get him. Okay, cool. Let's fast forward. Okay, let's go back now to just before that, all the trade rumors for Ekman Larsson. And you and I have had multiple conversations about this, texting, and I think even over the phone. I thought this was an awful deal. Okay, so here's this guy who says, I've got a no trade clause, and the only teams I want to go to is Boston and Vancouver.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but just because someone likes you doesn't mean you have to date them. I tell that to my kids all the time. I'm like, hey, to my daughter, if that kid likes you, like that boy declares that he likes you, doesn't mean you need to date him. I say that to my son, that just because that girl likes you, do you like them? Right? It's like, dude, does Vancouver like Ekman Larsson? And I think what happened is this love affair that happened with Vancouver fans and sports talk radio is like, oh my goodness, somebody actually likes us. We've been the ugly kid. Sorry for all, I don't know if this is appropriate, but we've been the ugly kid that's never got any interest. And it's been a bad place to be for a long time. No winning culture. All of a sudden there's a guy who says, I want to go there. And the problem was, I think it was 8.2 million over the next 8 years or something crazy like that.
Stuff. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to spend $8 million, I'm going after Pietrangelo or, fill in the blank with whatever guy's name. Ekman Larsson to me doesn't, I didn't go, oh my goodness. In fantasy drafts that we do, we'd never, Ekman Larsson's on waivers, you know? So what, I don't understand the love affair. Can you kind of explain to me what was Canucks Nation was?
I was looking at the playoffs, great Stanley Cup teams seem to need that one kind of run and gun defenseman that's all world offensive. And then you need that stay at home defenseman. You think of the Chicago years again. Not that I'm a big Chicago fan or anything, but just looking over the years, they had the Seabrook and they had the Duncan Keith, right? And you have that kind of mix. And even years back with the Ducks, you had that Scott Niedermayer and Chris Pronger, was it? Kind of this mix and match. And then this playoffs, you get to see some all world guys. So you got Tampa Bay that has Hedman, who's really, there's other really good defensemen in Tampa Bay, but Hedman was everything. And then same thing with St. Louis. Pietrangelo was everything, right? But then you get teams like Dallas, who you've got this number 1 offensive defenseman and a number 2 offensive defenseman. And it's like, wow, if you're able to have a speed game and just whip, your first pairing out and then your second pairing out with just top line offensive guys, I think that's where Vancouver Canuck fans start to salivate, going, okay, you got Hughes and the number 1 pairing, and you got OEL in a second pairing. Man, this looks really good, but not at any price. And I think I was chatting with you. I hate spending big money for past endeavors, right? Like you don't pay old men big contracts. Now, again, OEL's not old, but that's a massive contract for, for us signing at where we're at in the stage of the game. It would be similar to like back when Luongo had this massive contract. He says, I want to play for, I don't know, let's say I want to play for the Maple Leafs. And Maple Leafs would say, oh, we'd love to have this number one goalie, but not at like $10 million a year. And that's the problem. We need a stud like OEL to complement Hughes. Like that would definitely put us into better contention. Like these playoffs were an amazing playoff run. I don't think we're ready yet to challenge in top four.
Right.
But if we had that second top end defenseman, it's like, look out, now we're fine. So that's why that's a salivating, but we shouldn't have gone for it. I'm glad we didn't. So.
Yeah, me too. And I know that there was a lot of talk about like what we could have gave up. Like we would give up like an Eriksson crazy contract or Virtanen or whatever, but it still didn't soften the blow of 8 seasons. Like it was insane. So I'm with you.
Okay, you wouldn't have gotten rid of those contracts anyways. Why would Phoenix want that back?
Well, they would have to. In order for us to pull it off, we'd have to do that. There's no way. But I think what they wanted was a first round pick as well. So it was something like Eriksson and Virtanen and a first round pick and Juolevi for OEL. And I'm like, no. Like as much as I want to get rid of Eriksson's contract, that's still not worth it to me. We Markstrom, Holtby, we didn't trade for Ekman Larson. And then all of a sudden there's lots of rumors that we've offered all these contracts to people on our team and Stetcher's not included. Now, I think that Stetcher had a phenomenal playoff. I was super impressed because Myers went down with an injury. What did you think when they were like, we're not going to keep Stetcher?
Well, I like Stetcher, and when I watch him play, he's fun. He's got passion. He's got enthusiasm. He's obviously a local boy. And I couldn't always figure out why it seemed like he was often in the doghouse, either by the coach or by different TV pundits. And obviously that's where it shows that I'm just, I like to be entertained by watching hockey. I'm not an expert in the game by any stretch. And it shows where I'm going, okay, what's wrong with this guy? And my guess is he has these defensive lapses that, that frustrate Travis Green, because I think he'd get in Travis Green's doghouse a lot. So my guess is Green probably had a little bit of a say going, you know what, great guy, but we need to improve in that. And so I'm not surprised that Stetcher went, not because I could judge whether he was a good defenseman or not, but it just seemed like he'd been in the doghouse for
you're right. And he kind of I don't know, I'm just kind of trying to look up his size, but his size kind of reminds me, it doesn't say here, but his size reminds me of like Hughes, right? They kind of had that same body type, but Hughes was next level talent. So he can get away with the size. And in fact, he's such a good skater. He missed a lot of that bone crushing hits where I think Stetcher got caught a couple times. And I was worried about like having two guys that size. Obviously, we're all cheering for the hometown boy to make it. But when we said that we're not going to bring him back, I wasn't like, oh, man, this is like the worst case scenario. I was like, I can see why we're not. Because he's going to want more money than we want to give. And we're really because what you said, the bottom 6 forwards that we pay is unbelievable. And we've got problems from that. So we're just trying to get some of those guys off our books. Like Eriksson's not retiring anytime soon. Why would he? No. $6 million a year. But Sutter makes 4.3 a year. In fact, I thought it was before as he was making 5.5. So I don't know if it's gone down, but he's got one more season and he's off the books, right? So you got some things there that it's really good. And so I thought we needed to lose a guy like that, which is fine. But the big one that Vancouver fans were going nuts about was Tanev. And now I'll give you my take, and I just want to hear your opinion, and definitely jump in if you disagree. But I love Tanev. I think he's a warrior. I think he's what you embody in a defensive defenseman. And I was so excited when he scored that overtime goal for us in the playoffs. And he's a shot block, like nobody shot blocks like him. He's unbelievable. But him and Edler have been glass. Now, as number 1 and number 2 defensemen on Vancouver, they couldn't handle the workload and they got injured. This year was the first year they both were healthy. It's because we had Myers and we had Hughes and we had some help, right? So it was great to see. But I didn't want to offer him lots of money because he probably was going to get injured again. So what good is $4 million or $4.5 million what he ended up getting for 4 years when you're sitting on the bench nursing an injury? Now, I know you can't predict injuries, but how did you feel about Tanev? And were you disappointed that we lost him? Or do you think we could have afforded that $4 million? Because I was hoping we were going to get Tyson Barrie, and I couldn't believe that he signed for only $4 million to Edmonton for 1 season. Because I'm like, if it's Tyson Barrie or Tanev, let me take Barrie because he has the upside skill, but we lose the defensive. And my last point about this is that they say that Tanev, his defensive play really elevated Hughes' play, and by losing him, they're nervous about that. How do you feel about Tanev and what happened there?
Well, for one thing, I differ from you. Is I would take I'd take Tanev over Barrie. That's just my opinion. Just because I think Tanev is a stud defensively, where Barrie will get some points, but it reminds me of the Ed Jovanovski years that you might have to close your eyes every time the puck comes his way defensively. I thought the same thing. Tanev would be great if you didn't have to sign him for that much. He's the kind of guy you want on your roster, like a veteran player, like an Edler signing for a few more years. I think that's great. And I don't think he's, $4+ million for 4 years. It's like, ooh, that's a long contract that might not look too good if he is Glass again. The frustration for me, Trevor, is it goes back to that plan idea is, you lose 2 defensemen, Tanev and Stetcher, and all of a sudden you've got this, a fairly hefty amount of funds, and then you sign, and I know this is jumping ahead in the conversation, but you sign Nate Schmidt, and he's got this much bigger contract, and it's like, okay, if you were going to spend that kind of money on kind of a defenseman, shot blocker kind of guy, why don't you just save some money and sign Tanev? Why all of a sudden lose Tanev, lose Stetcher, and then almost like spontaneously going, let's sign this guy for like $5-6 million. What is he?
5.9 for
$5.9 million. It's like, okay, great defenseman. I think it's a great signing, but this, my head scratching is like, well, you kind of had a guy like that for cheaper. So if it was a money issue with Tanev, you kind of saved money if you would have gone with Tanev. So I'm trying to figure out the logic behind that. Schmidt's not that much younger, if at all. I think, well, Tanev's 31, right?
And Schmidt's 29.
29. So it's still, and so he's a good player. He's an upgrade from Stetcher. He'll make the top 6 better. But it was just that surprise of like, if you're going to spend money on a D, or you're going to try to save money on the D, I should say, it's like, why are you getting this guy for this amount of price? Now you got three guys that are $6 million contracts on D without a trade. You can't trade them. They've got a no trade clause, and that's a few years to have in your top 3 highest paid defensemen.
Yeah, the good news is Edler comes off the books after this season.
Oh, okay.
So that's good, but he's 34, so I don't know what's going to go on there. But yeah, I'm with you. That didn't make sense financially. I think that made sense. We'll get into that in a second. Okay, so rewind back to, we don't get Markstrom. So plan B is going to be, we're going to sign Toffoli. We've already got Holtby, and we're going to figure something out defensively, but we're going to try to sign Toffoli, top 6 forward. And it seems like they're in conversations. And then this morning it breaks that he signed with Montreal. And I'm like, and I think this is the spot where fans start losing it. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but Fire Benny was number 4 hashtag on Twitter. Okay. And I can understand why fans were doing that, right? Like, if you think about it, it did. Like, this is worst case scenario. We go in from being in a playoff spot with our MVP. We lose our MVP. We lose Stetcher. We lose Tanev. We lose Toffoli. And now what? What is available out there? And people are panicking. People are angry. And I think that's where your friends were messaging you. Like, all the haters of Benning are like, see, I told you he's awful, right? But I always have to remind myself, I can't in the moment determine what's happening in hockey, because there's always something else that's in the works or trying. Like, I know for a fact, no, I don't, but according to my sources, which is me, no, or friends, is that, or whatever the Jeff Patterson or, Sportsnet, they're talking like Canucks are still in the race for Toffoli. Now, I like Toffoli. I don't love Toffoli. I don't think that we need Toffoli to win, but it sure was nice. But who are we going to replace with a Toffoli? So when we lost Toffoli, I'm like, okay, now I'm confused. What's going on? Like, I text with my brothers. They're hilarious. I love texting with my brothers about hockey. But my brother was like, we don't have money. We do not have money. It's like, okay, cool. I'm like, but I don't know if you know this, but we just lost 4 starters, and we haven't we've replaced them with one. That's Holtby, and he can't score goals. He can only stop goals. So what's the plan here? Like, we're not making the playoffs, right? So I don't know. How did you feel about the Toffoli thing? Because it seemed to me that we were saying no to Toffoli, but we're going to go to arbitration with Virtanen. Virtanen's going to get $3 million at least a year, and Toffoli signed for what, 4.2? It's like, are you not going to spend another like, now is Virtanen a top 6 player?
Well, that's what they're planning him for, or that's what they're putting him in for. Like, obviously, they said we're going to sell the farm on Virtanen, and we're going to let Toffoli go. That's the only thing I can imagine that's going on there. Again, the big thing for me, if there was any of the 3 that I would have loved to have kept just as a fan, it would have been Toffoli, because I thought the other 2 were just going to be priced out and go somewhere else. But all I wanted to hear was Benning to say to the media, going, "Hey, these 3 big guys, they're going to be expensive to sign, and we're not going in that direction." And so then we can get frustrated or whatever, but at least he told us. But that's not what was said. It was said, "Hey, we're going to try to sign all 3 of the guys. We're going to try to keep them." So when all 3 walk, you have, as a fan, that's why you go ballistic, going, "You were trying to sign him. You must be inept at this kind of thing." Like, right. So it would be really helpful if we would just communicate to in such a way, going, "Hey guys, just so you know, we've got a plan, and the plan is we're actually not going to go with these guys. We'll throw a bone to see if maybe we can grab one of them, because who wouldn't? But at the end of the day, we're ready to move on." But that's not what was communicated. I think that's why fans are going nuts. And then when you start looking at the contracts, it doesn't take much to look at. What was the tweet going around today of, a Sutter contract and was it Sutter and Eriksson would have been more money than if we would have kept Markstrom and Toffoli, something crazy like that. Wow. And it's like, ooh, that starts to hurt, because you're thinking, yeah, it stinks. Now I know that those contracts were signed. I don't want to keep bringing that up, but that's the frustration, is like, put some good money towards some players. So,
right. So, but when we're in that spot, what do we do? Right? Like with no money, like those contracts either, but right. we can't until they come off the books, and we're still paying Luongo $3 million.
Totally, which is dumb, of course.
So what do you do? Like, all these fans that are so angry about this, I'm sitting there going, but this is where we're at. Like, everyone criticizes the Leafs, but at least they paid their stars. Yeah, we're paying our bottom 6.
Yeah. Well, and what you do, Trev, is you tell the fans up front, going, "Hey," and Benning did make mention of this, going, "We got some young guys that need to play." And one guy I'm pretty high on is Rathbone. I think he's another Benning pickup that he's going to surprise people in the same way where people said, "Well, Hughes, is this guy really going to be as good as they say?" It's like, Benning knew he was going to be good. And I think Rathbone's, he's going to be good too. And Rafferty, like, you've got some young guys that Juolevi, I think, will be a player. I think, he's not going to be a superstar guy. I think he might be more like an Edler. But you got to let these guys play. So I get that. I don't care if we don't sign another defenseman. But when you talk top 6, all you need Jennings to say is going, "You know what? We'd love to have Toffoli. We can't afford him. We'd love to pick up another top 6. We can't afford him. But we got this guy down, in the minor leagues that needs to play. What's his name? Is it Hoglander? Did I get that right?
Just
He,
looking here.
he's got to play. He's put up decent numbers out in Europe, and the guy's going to be a star. And I would say that he'll probably be a better star than Toffoli would be long term over a career. Again, you can say all you want about prospects and sometimes never pan out, but that guy looks like a genuine stud, and he
You mean
needs
the
to
guy from
play.
Sweden?
Yeah, not the one, not the
Hoglander, right?
All these names are hard to pronounce, right? Not that guy.
Okay, so yeah,
Noglander,
there's some
I think.
people in the
Yeah.
system that really hope it pan out for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying Colin necessarily, although I think Colin potentially could be like a Toffoli. He might end up being more like a Vertanen than a Toffoli, but Toffoli hasn't super lit it up year after year in the NHL. So
I think you and I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a soft spot for Cole Lynn because I went to that prospect game and he was unbelievable. And I'm like,
sure.
and then he
Mine
hasn't.
says I live in Kelowna and he's a rocket, and I got to see him. That every place he's been in is, his first year you could barely see him on the ice. The second year is like, hey, you're getting better. By third year, it's like you're lights out, and you're seeing that same kind of development down in Utica. And so, I imagine that will be him in the NHL too if he gets there.
Yeah, and it would be great. I mean, I hope that happens. Yeah, so okay, I love Jake Virtanen. He is not as good as what we hoped, right?
Yeah.
But he is starting to develop. I love that he can hit. I love that. I don't love that he does the rough stuff. Like, I don't like his when he tries to act like Roussel. I don't like that. It's like, stop. Everyone hates people like that, but I guess he knows his role and blah blah blah. But he scored 18 goals, so I'm excited about that. In the playoffs, everyone thought he was God's gift to our team. Like when someone went down, he goes in and he's going to be top six. Well, he had a couple of good moments for sure, and I was happy about that. So I'm happy to still have the Jake Virtanen moment, but I'm worried he's gone now too. But I did want to talk about the Juolevi thing just for a second.
Okay.
When Vancouver drafted him, he was considered in the argument of the best defenseman coming out of the draft because we could have picked Matthew Tkachuk because he went right after us. We picked Juolevi and then Tkachuk. Now, we thought we hit the jackpot with Juolevi. 2 massive injuries, at least, that I know of, that are hard to come back from, and we're still talking about him. Like, how many years has Tkachuk been playing in the NHL? Right? So I'm frustrated by that move. But they thought we had hit the jackpot because we got the number 1 defenseman off the board. So now, fast forward all these years, all those rehabs, all the things he's worked hard, he's now going to get his chance to prove himself. Sure. And he does have talent. That's what no one would there's so many teams that are going to draft him in the first round. He got drafted in the top 10. We forget that about Juolevi. So I'm happy to see him develop.
Yeah.
But when we saw him in Penticton, we saw like Bo Horvat. We've seen Brock Boeser, I believe. We've seen Johnny Gaudreau there, and Connor McDavid, and Virtanen, and guys where you could say that guy's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And when we saw Juolevi, it was like, I don't know. And that was
not the same kind. Not flashy. Yeah, not flashy at all. I'd like to see him compared to other defensemen in the draft. Like, I get it that we lost Tkachuk, but if we're aiming for a defenseman in that draft, then we compare him, apples to apples with other defensemen in that draft. Who did we miss out on?
I think it was McVoy. McVeigh? No, what's his name?
Okay, over in Boston there. Yeah. I'm not convinced that we can make that judgment call yet, that we missed out massively.
Okay, I'll tell you right now.
Wait for another 5 years.
Okay, these were the names. So it went Matthews, Patrick Lenny, Dubois, Puljujärvi. Oh, that was awful. Yeah. Juolevi, that was awful so far. Tkachuk, Keller, Nylander for Buffalo. Okay, now that's so.
That's not a strong draft. Like, it's strong that these guys are NHL players. Because there's some drafts where that doesn't happen. But that's not like, wow, did we ever miss out?
From Montreal, Sergachev.
Oh,
he's a defenseman.
Who's now with Tampa Bay. Right?
Jake Bean.
Who's lost behind Hedman.
Right. Jake Bean. I don't even know who that is. He plays for Carolina. Charlie McAvoy. He was 14th. Yeah, like
good.
the
Yeah.
defensemen are awful that year.
Yeah. So you never know, Trev. We could still see this guy, like, give another 3 years. Um,
Yeah.
that we'll see what this guy can do. My guess is he's not going to be a big numbers guy. He's going to be not flashy, but I think that he'll be just that good steady. He might be that Seabrook guy that we're hoping for. So
Right. And he was a good skater. Like he showed
oh yeah, the guy can skate.
brilliance. Like he can skate, right? I know that sounds like a funny thing. It's like he can skate. Well, he's in the NHL.
Well,
But if
yeah,
you
yeah,
said
of course.
Lucic, I don't think he can skate well. He's got a job, but anyways. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, there's two guys I want to talk about. One is Motte. Did you like the signing for Motte?
I love Motte. I think Motte's the kind of player when you start back a few years ago when they started signing bottom six players like Beagle and
Yeah.
oh, who else is down there? Roussel and you're putting a lot of money into those guys, and I'm thinking we can develop some of those young guys. And
Right.
Motte is that player. I didn't know that he had such good stats back in his university days, right? He played at university. And so he's got the ability to put in points, but he's obviously made himself a defensive specialist, and he's great. He's just that key player that you need that will just be at that moment as you least expect he'll score that game-winning goal. And I think that's a fantastic signing. It's a fantastic price for that signing. It's the same feeling I have with Zach McEwen, who got signed up too as well, didn't he? Or has he? Yeah, that just happened pretty recently. Again, I think Mott's got bigger upside, but Zach those are the kind of contracts, and that's the kind of age, and that's the kind of player they need to be replacing the bottom six guys that they put all this money into. These are guys that are going to do it for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that signing too. And I thought it was 2.5, but what I didn't realize is that's over 2 years. It's only 1.225 over each year. And I'm like, what? Like when you look at that compared to Roussel, who's making $3 million a year, and it's like, I'd rather have Motte.
Holy, don't pay old guys contracts for stuff they did in the past. Motte is a great contract. Absolutely.
So we're strapped to the tilt, and we're still offering players contracts. And contrary to what my brother says, we have no money. And I said to him, I literally said, that's not true. We're going to sign Toffoli or someone else, right? Toffoli gets signed. Everyone says hashtag fire Benning. And then out of nowhere, Pietrangelo signs with Vegas, and we get a trade alert, and we get Nate Schmidt for a third rounder in, is it 2022, 2021? I don't even know when it is. 2037? I don't know. All I know is I hated playing against Nate Schmidt in the playoffs. He was a killer, a Canuck killer, and all of a sudden he's on our team. So I'm pumped. I'm texting you. I'm like, let's go. And I'm texting all my friends, all my brothers. I'm going nuts. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, how much does his money make? Oh my goodness. 5.95 for 5 years. Okay, well, he is 29, and he is a guy who we needed. Like, I didn't know who we were going to start on the defensive end. I thought we were in big trouble defensively. So now we're going to start Juolevi or Jordy Ben, or I don't know. And I'm like, yes, no, we have money, but now we spent it on him. But I'm happy and I'm sad at the same time. So like, if it must be that Schmidt is going to be the replacement to Edler. That's the only way I can think of this. Because if Edler's got one more year for $6 million, he's off the books. All of a sudden we got Schmidt. I'm happy with that deal. What do you think about it? Like, I guess you've already kind of commented about it, but going for your comment now, right? We spent all that money on him. Does that mean we lose Gaudette and Virtanen?
I don't want to lose Gaudette. That's our first time we mentioned him, and I think he's going to get picked up by an expansion team, and I think he'll move from a checking bottom six to a top six for an expansion team. And I hate to say that. I don't want to see that happen. I really think Gaudette is the real deal. He just needs more ice time. He's one of those kind of guys. I would think that Schmidt was there to replace Tanev, as weird as that sounds. The Edler, my guess is they're going to start signing him to 1-year contracts until he retires. And he'll move from, where is he? Is he top pairing with Hughes, or was that Tanev and Hughes? How did that work?
Tanev and Hughes, yeah.
Yeah, so then Edler was
Myers and Edler.
Myers and Edler. I think those guys should probably be split up a bit, maybe, right? And so I would think that Schmidt would find himself somewhere on that second line, but you need those right D. Is Schmidt at right D? I should even look at that. Oh, he'll play. Well, that's kind of helpful. It'd be really nice to have that, a big shot on the right. And I'm not sure if this is the guy that does that, but I still would like one more signing somewhere.
Yeah, but okay, so, and I'm with you, but we have $2 million left.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, we're not signing anyone else. We tried to get the Toffoli, we tried to get Markstrom, and then, that didn't work. So, try to get Tanev. So Schmidt's fine. Now we're going to arbitration with Virtanen. My guess is he's $3 million. We can't even afford to sign Virtanen for $3 million.
Yeah.
So we lose Virtanen. Now what are we gonna do? Like, we're talking, we got Brock, we got Bo, we got Miller, we got Pearson, we got Pettersson, and
Archie. There's another contract. $3 million.
How much is it? Oh my!
It's $3 million. Yeah, just this next year, but yeah. So there's.
But still, I mean, that matters. So
they're going to have to do a trade. Would be my guess. If there's any other movement this year, I think it'll be a trade, and it could be something like you sign for Tannen and trade him.
The only way we could get some money, I think, other than a trade, is if Ferland goes on the long term.
Oh sure, yeah.
Unable to perform or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's so hard to make a judgment call on Ferland. Like, it's 3.5 million, but it's we just haven't been able to see him play. And I did like him, as an agitator for both. It was Calgary where he first kind of came, right? And then awesome. So I like him, and I don't mind that price. Yeah, but it's those older players that I think are kind of untradeable. The Beagle, the Sutter, the Erickson, that I don't know what to do with them. Somebody's got to be traded.
Yeah, so the big name, like the people that people would want, would be Brock, would be on that list. I mean, no one's really going to want to trade much for Tanner Pearson, even though we like him in Vancouver.
Yeah,
he doesn't have trade value. So this is I literally think Vancouver is done doing any other moves. In fact, I think we lose for Tannen. I think we'll keep Gaudette. I think I'm with you there. We'll keep Gaudette. But then we've got some massive holes. And I do not know how we're going to fix that. So now you're hearing me, like, I'm the guy who's like, we're making the playoffs. And before the Schmidt trade today, I'm like, there's no way we're making the playoffs. What do you think? Do you think Vancouver makes the playoffs this year with this roster at the moment? I know that Benning's working on something else, right? And if he gets something else done, we might need to have another conversation. But what do you think?
You know what? It sounds crazy, especially afterwards when you said that last year they'd make the playoffs, and I didn't think they would. This year, I'm going to say, yeah, I actually think they will make the playoffs. And it sounds like, well, how do you make the playoffs when you got your team? I'm not convinced they gutted it. I think Markstrom is replaced by Holtby and a better Demko. I think Toffoli, we got a 17-game tryout basically with him. I think there's another year under the belt of like the Petterssons of the world and the Boesers of the world. I think Boeser, this is his big, you got to show me something kind of year. He's had injuries and stuff like that, but he's going into, is it third year or fourth year he's going to? If he's going to fourth year, this is a big coming up here. So I think just simply because the players are better and more experienced, I actually think that this team's going to make the playoffs. What do you think?
No, I right now with this roster, there's no way we make it. And I'll tell you why. We don't have enough scoring. Unless Brock turns out to be the guy who, like in his first year,
back to 30 goals.
he has to get at least 30 to 40. Now, he's been a point a game guy, I think, in this last year. So he's got some promise, but he doesn't look like what we are hoping. And I love Brock. I do not want to trade Brock. I want to keep him. I want to ride out this contract. He's only got 2 more years, but I want to ride it out. I want us to keep Jake Virtanen, but I don't think we're going to keep him. So I'm looking at this roster and I'm like, I don't see where the scoring is going to come from consistently. Now, this is where, now you're going to hate me for this probably, but I think that Bo Horvat has to play better offensively.
Really?
I do not think he had that playoff run where he dominated, he would highlight. He's got the skill level to do that. Now, I know you're playing against the greatest players in the world, okay? But he's got that talent, and I just think he needs another 10, 15 points a year. Yeah. Then we can start seeing that, right? And I love that he's the face-off king. I love that he plays great defensively. I love his character. But we're not getting enough production out of him. We're not getting enough production out of Brock. We love JT Miller. He's a stud. Pettersson's our best player right now, which is great. But after that, I don't know where.
I have to interrupt you with Bo. You can't pick on Bo. He's my favorite, and he's a beast. And the pundits, they're always, oozing on the guy, saying this guy is such a player. And Trevor, he was never supposed to get the kind of points that he's getting. He was always supposed to be a second line center. He was never supposed to be as good of a player he is. I think he's Jonathan Toews. Now you're right. Jonathan Toews had a few years in there where he could push those points up, and even just recently, he seemed to pick up his offensive game again. I think that might be in Horvat, but I honestly think that we don't need him to do that for him to be what he does on the Vancouver Canucks. I think he's all that he can be, right as he is.
Okay.
That's my.
I appreciate the argument. Let me push back. I think saying that he's the Jonathan Toews comparison is a very big exaggeration, because yes, Toews did not score the Patrick Kane numbers, but he was a number 1 center with a Patrick Kane. And he puts up way more points than Bo Horvat is. For example, I'm just looking at his numbers right now. 82 games in 2015, 2016, he only got 40 points. Next year, 81 games, 52. Okay, I can live with 52.
This is Toews or this is Horvat?
This is Horvat.
Okay.
Yeah, if we compare Toews, you're going to be shocked, right? Because it's not like he's probably 70-point guy. Right?
In his best years. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. So, but then 64 games only, 44 points. Okay. So that's not bad. 2 years ago, 82, 61. And then in this shortened season, it was 69 games and 53 points. So I'm okay.
But that's a pretty decent year.
Yes.
If that was an 83 game season, he would have been up. He'd be pushing 70 points. Did I do my math right?
I don't know, but okay. Then we add his playoffs, and in 17 games he scores 10 goals and has 2 assists. So maybe you're right. Maybe Bo Horvat. Well, no, okay. So you're right that you like him, but I'm right that we need that production from him.
Sure.
Right?
10 goals in the playoffs is all the production I want to see out of him. If he can do that again next year when they make the playoffs, then he's worth every penny we give him.
So I think what now going forward, we're talking about this season, and I think that Benning's not done. He's going to try to make a move. I think there's some kind of trade that he's now, I think he's going to be an extremely busy guy from now until trade deadline. There's something that he's going to try to pull off. But the problem is I think he's going to have to put draft picks in there, and losing Madden and a second-round pick for 17 games with Toffoli was terrible. Hindsight 2020. If we signed Toffoli, it was good. But I don't know what we're trading, and I don't think Virtanen's going to be on our roster. I'm worried about where we're going to be. So that's why I'm saying we're not going to make the playoffs at this current stage.
And my thoughts would be, I said it earlier, is that let the young kids play and let's throw in some prospects and do the hard work of growing from within. I'm nervous if he tries to make another trade. I'm nervous if he loses some more. You don't start trading away draft picks when you're still an up and coming team. You start trading away draft picks when you're just on the verge of winning a cup. That's when you do it. And they're not on the verge. So don't be trading your draft picks. We need to keep them around. So,
well, I wonder if the plan is to bring up Hoglander or Hoglander. I don't even know how to
or
say
Hoglander or no. What is that name? We got to find out what that name
it.
is.
I don't know, but
I keep saying Noglander.
He's got super
Hoglander's
skill.
probably right. Oh, the guy's brilliant. I think he plays this year.
Yeah. And maybe that's the plan. I mean, I don't even think that's the plan. That's just what we have to do.
I hope it's a plan, but again, we're not sure there is a plan, and that's the frustration from fans. Just tell us the plan, and we'll be okay.
Okay. I agree with you. As a fan, we want to know. But how can he say that? How can he say, guys, we actually didn't want Markstrom, we didn't want Tanev, what we wanted to do is let all those guys go, and hopefully somehow make a small, some kind of a splash in a trade, and we're gonna play our young guys. You can't say that. We don't actually want Toffoli. You couldn't say that to the fans, because then you're playing your cards. Why don't you just do what he does and says, yeah, no, we're trying to sign them, and then if we sign them, great. If we don't, we got another plan. Like, I haven't heard Bennings. Have they had an interview with Bennings since this trade? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Not yet. Not that I have heard.
I don't know. Too busy on the phones trying to make another deal.
Maybe or enjoying Thanksgiving dinner again.
Yeah.
I like what they did how they communicated Stetcher. Because we knew right off the bat, hey, we're not going to sign this guy. So they were fairly early with Toffoli saying the same thing, going, yeah, we're moving in another direction. So they tell us. I go back, the frustration is they were saying they're going to try to sign all three. Now, maybe they did, but you don't typically strike out, what is it? 3 strikes and you're done here. And if you're going to lose 2, then put all your eggs in one basket and get the third guy, if that's what the plan is. But if that's not actually what the plan was, if the plan was going, we're going to try, in other words, we're going to offer them knowing full well that they'll probably get more on the open market. But we'll tell our fans going, we're going to be thoughtful with our stewardship because we've only got so much cap space. And if they don't take it, they don't take it. And so that they can go back going, hey, these are great players, but they decide to test the open market. And we gave the open market to them. I feel that language would help a fan go, okay, but then tell us, what are you going to do with Toffoli? And, who's going to fill that spot? And then he can say, well, who was in that spot before? We'll find it with a prospect, or we'll throw somebody in there. Whatever happened to, is it Leno or Lieno?
Josh, we should be signing him too.
Yeah, people are pretty high on him, and so I wonder if he comes into that role again after being injured.
Yeah, I like him a lot, actually. I think the only reason we got him because Toronto had to do a salary dump there, and they didn't really want to let him go. So
he doesn't have a lot of points on his his resume, but he played pretty decent hockey, and I can see him coming into that and playing a full year. He's around.
Yeah, no, I think he's a good.
I say Leno, it's Levo. It is horrible.
Levo,
I'm doing a podcast and I don't even know my own players' names.
That's fine. It's fine.
I don't know how to pronounce my own name.
Hey, Don Cherry made a living by mispronouncing names.
This is true. He always did it with a wink. I do it with tears in the headlights kind of look. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, I have really enjoyed my time with you. I know a lot of it's gone back and forth. It's good to talk face to face on online here. And I think everyone's going to really enjoy your take on this. So just to conclude, Jeff is on the record. The Canucks are making the playoffs. So what is it?
Making the playoffs.
What's the date today? October 12th. Now, granted, the season starts in January, right?
Yeah.
So October 12th, Jeff's making the bold statement. We're making it. I'm saying with this current roster, we don't make it. I could be wrong, but I highly doubt it. Thanks so much, Jeff, for joining me. And I appreciate you so much, man. Any concluding statements or thoughts?
You're the man, and you know what? You're right a lot more often than you're wrong, man. So I highly doubt that you're wrong. I think you probably got a good thought, but I'm still holding out for it.
Okay. Thanks.
Take care, buddy.